What Ferrari just did behind the scenes could change the game entirely, and nobody saw it coming. While fans were busy dissecting lap times, new parts, and team radio squabbles, something far more consequential was unfolding. A decision has been made that could reshape Ferrari's entire trajectory in Formula One. And it's not just surprising, it's unprecedented. According to insiders close to the team, Fred Vasseur's role as team principal is no longer what it appears. The man once hand-picked to lead Ferrari back to championship glory is now being quietly edged out, not officially dismissed, but systematically stripped of authority, in a behind-the-curtain shift that screams damage control. This isn't Paddock gossip, it's a deliberate maneuver orchestrated by Ferrari's upper management, sending a very clear signal. They no longer believe Vasseur is the leader to guide them forward. Beneath the composed interviews and PR-polished press releases, the team is in full-blown crisis mode. 10 races into the 2025 season and Ferrari still hasn't stood on the top step of the podium. The SF25, a car Vasseur personally championed, is proving wildly inconsistent and a nightmare to set up. With Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton both visibly growing impatient, Maranello knew it had to act fast. The tipping point has been reached. Ferrari has just pulled off an internal shakeup so significant that even longtime insiders are calling it seismic. Fred Vasseur is being discreetly moved aside, and reports now confirm that Antonello Coletta, the architect of Ferrari's dominant World Endurance Championship success, has been handed expanded control over Formula One operations. Effectively, he's taken over Vasseur's job, without a single word to the public. Ferrari hasn't confirmed it, and they likely never will, but the power shift is already in motion, and its implications are enormous. This isn't just a reshuffle of leadership, it's a last-ditch effort to salvage a 2025 season spiraling out of control. Ferrari's campaign has been unraveling in plain sight. 10 races in and the team remains winless. Podium chances have slipped through their fingers thanks to tactical blunders. The SF25, once hailed as a bold step forward, has morphed into a technical headache. One weekend it looks competitive, the next it's struggling to even reach Q3. Engineers are baffled by its setup window. It burns through tires, destroys brakes, and the aero performance swings wildly. Inside the garage, morale is collapsing. The crew is burned out, strategy meetings feel aimless, and the drivers are visibly frustrated. Charles Leclerc, once Ferrari's beacon of hope, now sounds like a man drained by repetition. His radio messages have turned sharp, laced with the tone of someone who's voiced the same concerns one too many times. And Lewis Hamilton, in what was meant to be a legacy-cementing debut year with the Scuderia, has taken on the role of quiet dissenter, calling out outdated procedures and poor internal communication that continue to plague Ferrari's structure. Publicly, Fred Vasseur has done his best to project calm. But behind closed doors, the atmosphere tells a very different story. High-level meetings have become increasingly strained, with senior Ferrari board members making more frequent appearances and asking far tougher questions. The pressure isn't just from outside, it's building from within. The quiet decision to sideline Vasseur was weeks in the making, fueled by mounting frustration, eroded confidence, and a season slipping through Ferrari's fingers. Now the shift is happening, silently but decisively. There's been no formal announcement, yet Ferrari has begun restructuring its leadership from the inside. Vasseur still holds the title of team principal, but his grip on key areas, development strategy, and long-term planning has been significantly loosened. Taking his place in practice is Antonello Coletta, the mastermind behind Ferrari's immaculate World Endurance Championship run. Coletta isn't as media-friendly as Vasseur, but within Maranello, he commands deep respect. He's precise, results-driven, and ruthlessly efficient, qualities Ferrari's F1 division has sorely lacked. He now holds far more sway in daily operations, with engineers and top staff increasingly deferring to him. The tone of meetings has shifted. Decisions about car upgrades and race weekends are no longer coming from Vasseur's desk. What's emerging is a parallel leadership model, unofficial but undeniable. It mirrors McLaren's dual structure with Zach Brown and Andrea Stella, suggesting Ferrari may be testing a similar approach. Coletta is now overseeing both technical and sporting operations, while a future figure may eventually be brought in to handle commercial strategy. For now, Coletta is steering the ship, while Vasseur has been reduced to a symbolic presence. Whether this is a short-term correction or a full-on transition is still unknown, but the intent is clear. Ferrari is pivoting mid-season, not out of strategy, but out of necessity. Shareholder unrest, Harsh headlines from the Italian press and relentless media scrutiny forced Ferrari's hand. Every mistake, every frustrated radio call had become national news. To prevent total implosion, changes had to happen, and quickly. What added to the sense of urgency were two high-profile failures behind the scenes. First, Ferrari made a bold attempt to lure Christian Horner away from Red Bull, only to be turned down. Then, they chased Adrian Newey, who instead chose to join Aston Martin. Both failed pursuits made one thing unmistakably clear. Ferrari is desperate for a new direction. When those high-profile pursuits fell flat, Ferrari had nowhere else to look but inward. The board ran out of scapegoats. The time for action had arrived. And while leadership scrambled behind the scenes, Leclerc's frustration was no longer just whispered in briefings. It was spilling out over the radio waves. His messages have turned sharp, emotional, pointed. He's not just questioning calls, he's signaling a collapse in trust. Hamilton, ever more composed, mirrors the same disillusionment. He's been measured, but his words carry weight, hinting at the need for cultural change and structural shifts. These aren't throwaway comments, they're alarm bells. And Ferrari heard them loud and clear. They couldn't afford to wait until Abu Dhabi, not when the belief of their drivers, fans, and sponsors was visibly eroding. The discreet handover to Antonello Coletta wasn't just a reaction, it was an act of survival. But beneath that move, a deeper battle had been brewing. Inside the team, a split was taking shape. Engineers who still stood by the more stable 2024 car philosophy versus those who gambled everything on Vasseur's radical 2025 concept. The SF25 was supposed to be a reset. Instead, it deepened internal divides. As the car faltered, defenders of last year's design felt vindicated. Vasseur's high-stakes vision had failed to deliver, and suddenly, everything was up for debate. Meanwhile, Coletta's World Endurance Championship team was operating like clockwork. Flawless execution, clean weekends, zero drama. The contrast raised eyebrows at the highest levels. If one side of Ferrari could function with military precision, and why was the F1 outfit in shambles? And why wasn't Coletta already involved? Vasseur, once seen as the architect of the future, began to find himself shut out. His authority quietly faded. Key voices stopped echoing his vision. Meetings happened without him. Decisions were made elsewhere. This wasn't a coup. It was a controlled transition. A strategic isolation. One where Vasseur's title remained intact, but his influence didn't. The drivers noticed. Leclerc, who once fiercely defended Ferrari through every storm, began spending more time with engineers aligned with Coletta's camp. His post-session debriefs shifted. His attitude toward Vasseur cooled. And in that silence, there was a message. Hamilton has remained publicly diplomatic, but his statements speak volumes. Subtle references to outdated structures, a lack of innovation, internal confusion. In truth, he's calling out the entire system, without naming names. That's the biggest red flag Ferrari now faces. When drivers lose faith, the unraveling accelerates. Formula One isn't just about pace, it runs on belief. Without unity, the cracks reach from the cockpit to the pit wall. Ferrari knows this. That's why the quiet power handover to Coletta isn't just a performance correction. It's an attempt to hold the team together before it fractures beyond repair. So what happens next? All eyes are on Spa and Monza. Spa will push the SF25's aerodynamic balance to its limit, but Monza, Ferrari's spiritual home, will test everything else. Pressure, leadership, fan expectation, and the team's ability to respond. If the results don't change, the restructuring will no longer be silent. Insiders are already whispering that an official announcement is coming, one that will confirm what the Paddock suspects. Coletta will be formally handed control of the sporting and technical arms of the team. Vasseur may be reassigned into a strategic advisory role, a quiet exit, dressed in polite language. This kind of mid-season shift, executed in the shadows, is rare. But so is the scale of the crisis Ferrari faces. They no longer have the luxury of time, and with the driver market heating up and rivals circling, showing they're still in control, has never been more urgent. Because this is no longer just about Fred Vasseur, it's about Ferrari's identity, about whether they can finally stop the cycle of dysfunction or simply repaint it with new names and new titles. The next few races won't just shape their season, they may determine the fate of the entire rebuild. For now, Coletta's influence grows by the day. The drivers are watching, the fans are holding their breath. The board has lost its patience, and the rest of the grid, they're waiting to see if Ferrari rises or unravels. One thing's certain, this chapter isn't the end. It's the opening act.